guys, welcome back to my channel. This is my latest project and what we're going to be working on today. So this is sort of a traveler's notebook style journal that I'm going to be using to do some scripture journaling, which is my version of art journaling but related to Bible scripture. So what we have here is a Velcro opening, and it opens up to this. We have a pocket here for all of your cute little whatnots, and then we have this, which is removable. I can just slide this out. That's why I said it was traveler's notebook style, because it has this elastic here. And this is actually a check register. It's covered with some coordinating paper, and inside is just a check register paper. Now I'm going to be using this art journal style, so I'm going to be covering over a lot of what is in here. I just like the size of it. I like the portability of it, and the fact that you can work on this, finish it, get a new one, slide it back in, and it's durable. You can carry it around. So that's what we're going to make. I will see you guys over there. Hello. Okay, let's just jump right into it. We're going to start off with our chipboard. We have two pieces here that each measure 6 7/8 by 3.5. Okay, and then we have two smaller pieces here. This is 1/2 inch by 6 7/8, and then this one is 1/2 inch ish. It's slightly smaller than 1/2 inch. That is not a precise measurement, but it's just slightly smaller than 1/2 inch by 6 7/8. And once we put it all together, you'll see why it needs to be just a little bit smaller than 6 7/8. Than 1/2 inch. Sorry. This is our cover piece, so we are going to put some double-sided tape on these guys here and get them stuck down to our cover page. Now I need my ruler for this. I like to rip the double-sided tape that way. This is 3-inch double-sided tape. I'm going to go in here with a 1/4 inch piece too, just because I don't want this edge not to have anything on it. Okay, and I believe I have some, here it is, some 1/2 inch tape that I'm going to put on the back of this and on the back of our slightly smaller piece. Now, I like to have many different sizes of double-sided tape just because I've done the math on them, and it is cheaper for me to buy a 3-inch roll and use a big slice of it here than it is for me to take this 1-inch roll and use 3 of them. So that's why I just like to have multiple sizes, and I'll put a link to the tape that I buy on Amazon in the description. So now that we have these all covered, we are going to put the small one aside. We don't need this one yet, and peel the tape off of these other guys. I like to use an X-Acto to get this backing off. Everybody has their own methods. This is probably one of the more annoying parts of using double-sided tape, for sure. But I think using this X-Acto to kind of get this backing off is helpful. Okay, so we have our 3 super sticky pieces of chipboard, and this is our cover. This piece of paper measures 8 by 10. So I am actually going to get this thing off my hand. Then I'm going to grab my ruler. I like to measure it before I stick down just because I've had some bad experiences with not measuring. My eyeballing is not the greatest when it comes to stuff like this. So I'm just going to draw a line at 1/2 inch here. 1/2 inch from the bottom of the sheet. And then I think this one I'm just going to do, I think this is 3/4 inch. There we go. And that just helps me know where to place my chipboard so that they stay all lined up. So I'm going to take this first bigger piece. I'm going to stick it right in the corner here where my 2 lines intersect. I'm going to make sure it's lined up on the bottom. And then I'm going to take my smaller piece, which is the spine, and I'm just going to sort of eyeball this 1/2 inch. I mean, 1/2 inch. Definitely not 1/2 inch. 1/8 inch, sort of ish, between the two. And then take this one and do the same. About 1/8 inch. And make sure that it's lined up here on the line that I drew at the bottom. And there's that. That is pretty stuck down. So I'm actually going to trim off half of this. It's not necessary. And then this is what we have remaining, right? So you go ahead and fold. I'm just folding this over so that these pieces have, you know, they have a little bit of a fold so that when we go to glue them later, they will fold over a little easier. So I'll just do all 4 sides like that. The other reason we want to do that is because it creates this folded rectangle here. Now that is where we are going to do some cutting. Just going to cut at an angle, cut a triangular piece off here, leaving about, you know, it's not an exact measurement, but you want to leave enough here so that there's enough paper left to cover the chipboard. You don't want to cut too close to the chipboard because then it will be too short and the chipboard won't be all the way covered when you fold everything up at the end. So this is just one of those things that the more you do it, the better you'll get at sort of eyeballing where the cut needs to happen. So now that I have those 4 corners cut off, why do I have so many scissors? I'm going to take this glue. This says it's art glitter glue. I don't know how much I trust that, since sometimes I'll just put random glues in these little bottles. But anyway, you can use whatever white glue you have available. You could also use double-sided tape. Double-sided tape is not a bad idea for doing this, but I'm just gonna go ahead with this gluing. Where is my bone folder? Use a bone folder to sort of flatten everything out once it's folded over. And if you have left a little bit too much space, just a tiny bit too much space in these corners, what I like to do before I fold them up is just mash this little bit down here. Let's see if I can just mash this bit in so that when you fold it up, it's a cleaner edge. Go ahead and fold. Get this flattened down. I'm going to do the other two sides off camera. Be right back. Okay, I'm back and I have all four edges glued down and I'm ready to put in my liner page. So this piece of paper measures, what is it, 7 3/8 by 6 5/8, and I've cut it basically to leave 1/8 of an inch, or if not a little more, around each side. So I've already stuck some double-sided tape on the back of here, and actually I'm gonna put some glue here around the edges to make sure that it seals properly. And then I'm just going to place this down, eyeballing it, but you know, I want to make sure I have it where I want it to be before I let it touch down, because this double-sided tape very sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten out these edges. Make sure to get the glue all the way to the edge on all four sides, and then you want to fold this up just to make sure that when it's folded it will still have a clean adhesion. So fold it up and see what it looks like. If it's starting to come up in places, then go ahead and you might want to press the glue down a little bit more. And you can look on the inside in there, and if you see anything that looks a little funny, just press it down. And so we end up with this. Okay? The outside and the inside. What we're going to do now is take this smaller piece. This was the piece that I said was slightly smaller than 1/2 inch. Because this is 1/2 inch, I wanted this to be a little bit smaller than 1/2 inch because this is going to glue down right here in the center. But before we do that, we do want to cover this so that it matches the liner sheet. Okay, so I have this piece that measures 1 inch by 7 1/4, and I'm just going to, actually this piece already has double-sided tape, so I'm just going to take the backing off of this. And stick this down here. I'm eyeballing it, the center of it, because we're gonna glue. That was not a good eyeball. I'll pull this up if I can, so I can move it down a little bit. You just want to have enough room on all four sides to be able to fold it up. It's a little better. I'm going to cover this side with the double-sided tape as well. Before I do that, I'm going to fold over these 4 edges. And I'm just going to trim off like I did before. I'm going to cut these 4 corners off. And go ahead and fold these pieces up. And just get them stuck down. You're not going to see this side. This side is going to be glued down, so it's okay if it doesn't look perfect. You just want to get it covered so that when you look at this from the top side, it is a good match to the liner sheet here. Okay, so this is the side that you're going to see. Now, before we stick it down, we want to put our elastic through it. Now, the first thing I'm going to get out is my eyelet setter here by We Are Memory Keepers. And I have 2 silver eyelets here. And what we are going to do is punch a hole that is 3/16 of an inch. And if you have this tool, you know that on each side is a hole punch and it tells you which side is which. So this is the 3/16 side here. I've already moved this piece in so that it limits how far in we could go to punch our hole. So I'm just going to sort of eyeball the center of this and punch down. And that's what we end up with. Okay, there's that side, and flip it over and do the same on the other side. And so we have these 2 holes. So now we want to get our elastic. This is just white elastic. I don't remember the diameter. I'll look it up and leave a link to it in the description. But I got it off Amazon. It's pretty standard stuff. So you're going to take the elastic, you're going to stick it through one of the holes. It doesn't matter which end you start on. Right? And you want to pull off enough so that you have enough to run the length of this little middle piece. So while you have that elastic in the hole, you are going to, let's bring this in a little bit, take the eyelet and put it inside the hole as well. Now this is going to be a tight fit with the elastic in there. You will have to put some pressure on it. But when it's in, it looks like that. And the back side of it looks like that. So after you have that in there, you want to go ahead and set this eyelet. So, you know, you have to look up the instructions for this tool, but it tells you, you know, which piece, which side of the eyelet goes where, and based on the size of the hole you're punching, the size of the eyelet you're using. So because I'm using a 3/16 eyelet and the size of the eyelet, that dictates the settings on the tool. But you just squeeze it down, and what you end up with is this. Okay, and on the back, it looks like that. You're just going to trim this part on the back off as close to the eyelet. And you might be noticing that it's not very stuck down back here, but we're going to glue that down anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, let me bring this back up. So you're going to take the other side of the elastic and stick it through this hole. And you're just going to pull it down till it's flat. It doesn't need to be pulled tight, or it doesn't need to have any tautness in it at all. Right? You're just going to pull it flat and leave it. And then you're going to take your other eyelet and stick it through this other hole while the elastic is in the hole. So the elastic and eyelet are sharing this space here. And then go ahead and set the eyelet using the tool. And this is what you have. You're going to trim this part off again. And this is what it ends up looking like. You just have this piece of chipboard with an elastic attached to it. Now what you're going to do is go ahead and glue this down. I'm going to add some extra glue since my paper wants to keep coming up. You're going to glue this down to the middle of our book here. So be generous. I would be generous with the glue. Since you're gluing metal, this is a piece of elastic here. It's a little thicker than it would normally be. I would be generous with the glue on this side. And then you're just going to eyeball the center of this and stick it down. You want to make sure that you are not covering over any of the scores, any of the places where the book folds, which should be fairly easy to avoid if you have cut this a little bit smaller than the centerpiece. So wiggle it around, get it centered, and then go ahead and press it down so that it has some good contact with the other piece. I would wipe away any excess glue because you don't want to close this up and then have it get stuck together because you have extra glue there. So I would just give this a good press, maybe put something on top of it, and then let it dry. While this is drying, we're going to go ahead and work on the book that goes inside of this. So for the inside, we are just taking our check transaction register book thingy, and I'm sure that is the actual name of it, and we're going to cover it with this piece of pattern paper. Now this piece of pattern paper measures 6.5 by 6.5. So our checkbook register is 3 by 6. So we're not going to be folding this over or anything. We're just going to glue it down and then cut around the edges of it. So take your glue and just go around the edges of your check register, fill it in, and stick it down. And then go ahead and do this side. Fold this over, fold it down, and I'm going to use my bone folder to give it a good flattening. So what I'm doing now is I'm just trimming off the excess around the edges of the book. You could leave it. I guess it wouldn't hurt to leave it, but I'm not gonna. So we end up with that. You could actually round the corners, and I might end up doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and round the corners. I'll do that off camera and I'll be right back. There we have the rounded corners. I think that looks a lot cleaner. So this is our inside book. So what we're going to do now is work on a little pocket for the inside of the book. So this sheet measures 4.5, and not 4.5, 4.25 by 7 inches. I'm gonna get out my scoreboard here. That is super dirty. And my scoring tool, and put this in on the 7-inch side. Now we want to go ahead and score at, I think it is 3 1/8. Let me check. Yeah, 3 1/8. And then score again at 6 3/8. And then turn it to the 4 1/4 side and score it at 1/2 inch. And that's it. I'm going to fold over the scores and get them pressed down. Now we need to trim some of this off of here. You want to cut on this score line here up to that score line. And you're just going to cut this whole part off. So you can cut along the score line. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and cut a small triangle angle off of this piece that is left. And then come down to this corner, cut this off at an angle, and you can cut this off at an angle. And then cut this top piece off at an angle as well. So this is what you end up with. So we can go ahead and fold this up and glue it. Okay, so I'm gonna fold this little tab up, put some glue on it. And then fold this part over, get it in contact with that glue, press that down. And actually, before we go ahead and do the whole thing, we should have done this before we glued it down. You want to get in here with this and pop a little bit of it out. So just, I cut a little notch out of the front of that. You should do that before you glue anything down. Just kind of forgot about that part. So now we want to glue this tab. Make sure you keep the glue on this side, on the right side of the score line, and fold that over. This is what we have. We are going to put glue here and glue this down in the inside pocket of our book here. Make sure it's straight before our glue dries, and then press it down. So the last thing I want to do is to take this little belly band thing and add a closure. Now I cut this from the same sheet of paper that this came from, obviously, but then if you can tell, this one has some shininess to it. I actually put some clear embossing powder over it and heat embossed it. So now what I want to do is sort of fashion this here on the front, fold it over, and I'm going to use Velcro to close this up. Okay, so I've glued this down all the way across the back, and I have this flap remaining. Now I'm just going to add some Velcro. I have these Velcro dots, and even though they're pretty sticky, I do like to add a little glue anyway to make sure it's good and permanent. We don't want this coming up at all. So I'm just going to stick this at the very end of my little flap. I'm going to get the other half of it, stick it on, and then go ahead and add some glue. and get it lined up where it needs to go before I press it down. Now, when the glue's still wet, it's going to be very easy to pull this up. So I don't want to do that. And be really gentle about it. Make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be while we let the glue dry. And I'll be right back. Hello. So here's our final result. I ended up having to put some super glue on this Velcro dot just because this has heat embossing on it, so it's kind of slick, and the regular glue just didn't want to stick on there. So this is what it looks like. It's all closed up. It has a nice sort of 3D looking effect there. I like that. Open it up, and we have our little checkbook register journal, a little pocket here, and I actually added a cute little tag into the pocket. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this project, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Thanks guys. See you next time. Bye bye.